across B2B, about 43% of sellers are hitting their quota, which is not great, right? There's a lot to be desired in that number. Also, about 55% of sellers, when surveyed, say they lack some of the basic skills they need to be able to do their job well. But I think one of the biggest pieces is, how that manifests is that 82% of decision makers feel like the reps that they're interacting with in a sales call are unprepared, right? So that's like a really icky stat. And sorry for the data dump there. I know that's a lot of metrics and information, but when we look at the current state of revenue readiness, most revenue team members just aren't ready to meet the demands of their job. And that's a really unfortunate thing when there's a lot of pieces of that could be different. And so essentially what that happens when you see that in an organization, how that negatively impacts the bottom line is what we see happening in the market right now, pretty prevalent way, but the inability to hit goals, right? That's a really tough thing and a pretty visible thing throughout the business. But the thing that's less looked at is like high turnover, things like reps leaving. The average tenure for a sales rep right now is 18 months, which you're not getting a ton of time, losing a lot of intellectual capital with people as they leave. And it also just causes some inability to pivot, right? Because things do need to change with the way that the market conditions are right now. And some people are expanding ICP. Other people are looking to get into markets they've never served before, verticals they've never served before. So with the lack of ability to adopt with some of those skills, it just makes turning that ship a little bit harder. So all of that will kind of show up in that bottom line and not a way that you want to see your business perform.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the data dump. I mean, the data is helpful just to have a foundational level of understanding of what reality looks like right now, which is critical. $1 million question is, why, in your opinion, are revenue teams not ready? You mentioned that a lot of this is manifesting recently, at least in a very visual way over the past quarter. From what you're seeing, has it been a situation where revenue teams just were never really ready over the past couple of years, and it was just the whole rising tide lifts all boats sort of things, while the market was kind of carrying everybody along? And as long as people were hitting their quotas and businesses were growing and companies were able to raise outside capital, it was just like out of sight, out of mind?
It's a great question. I think there's probably a little bit of both, right? I think the conditions right now are probably exposing some things that maybe got covered up on a day-to-day basis, just because everybody has such scrutinized budgets right now, right? Like, in order to be able to get in the door for a conversation, there's going to be a lot of validation that's happening on the front end that wasn't necessarily happening before. Or there may even be the mindset of like, hey, we don't have any budget right now, so I'm not even going to take that, answer that prospecting email of a tool I find interesting. So I think it's just having to kind of get even a layer deeper or be a little more sophisticated coming to those conversations, just because of the way that the market is right now. And I think the thing that was really staggering for me to find was, reps across the board have like only 24% say they're getting coached on long-term skills, right? So then juxtaposed to 85% that say they're getting in-deal coaching, which, like, yeah, of course, let's make sure that people get in-deal coaching. We don't want to stop that, but it's also not the multiplying event, right? If you lean into that skills development, it's taking the horse to water, right? You're actually helping them become more productive and multiply on their own without having to worry about, getting in on every single deal. And then it allows, managers to kind of rise up and be a part of those bigger ACV deals, or, the ones that maybe are a little stickier through procurement, something like that. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity to lean into skills coaching. That's kind of like you were mentioning, like the tide that lifts all boats, right? There can be a focus on skills. It likely can take people to a different level of where they're coming into their functional need to do their job day to day. And enablement is a huge helper here. 3 out of 4 companies report that anywhere from 6 to 20% increase of revenue has happened for them once they've hired enablement into their orgs. So, there's it's a significant stat. Like, that's a helpful function to have inside of your organization. So I think it's really helpful to kind of lean into enablement here so that you know you're going to have somebody focus on this skill development, focused on people's ability to continue to grow within their role and learn and grow with your customer base as well, to make sure that they're understanding things.